All right, Doc Rivers, it's official. The press release comes out. Elton Brand says yada, yada, yada. Doc Rivers says yada, yada, yada. It's reported to be a 5-year deal. We hoped that he would get as much money as he could out of the team. And my guess is 5 years, maybe close to $60 million. I bet they're paying him $10 million plus a year. So that would. Mike O'Connor did we talked a lot about Doc Rivers on Wednesday, and I feel like on some level, because we're so incensed with the front office stuff, we're almost treating the coach thing as if it is like a B-level story rather than an A-level story. I can't muster up the excitement to talk about it like an A-level story.
Not
I guess.
at all. Not even close.
Right? Okay.
It's like signing up for classes the next semester when you're like, I'm dropping out. I'm fucking leaving this place.
That's exactly what it's like.
They're not, yeah, I'll take this class. Great.
Yeah.
Archaeology. Fine.
Yeah. Or like going to work when you know you're giving your notice in a couple of weeks is like, yeah, in your heart, you really want to say you're going to give it your all, but no one's, I've actually been a couple of times at work, the post 2 weeks notice guy at work. And you say you're going to go to all the meetings and stuff, but then you realize nobody really gives a shit what you have to say anymore. So anyway, I'm going to try. We're going to try to give it a little more than we gave it the other night, but I don't know that there's too much. Mike O'Connor wrote a good thing on writesRickySanchez.com, sort of a tutorial on Doc Rivers. There's a lot out there. From all so I've broken it down into positives and negatives. Aside from the fact that it doesn't matter that much, I don't think. But the positives and negatives, everything excuse me, everything I read, everything I know, everything that Mike read. One positive will simplify the offense and do sorts of things that Brett Brown didn't. Brett seemed to have a very pass-heavy offense that led to a lot of turnovers that they could never seem to grasp. That was, made even more difficult by the turnover every year. But it does seem as if Doc Rivers has done good things for big men and will simplify what they're doing. Now, he's also had very, very good perimeter creating players at all of his stops where he's done well, and he doesn't quite have that here, but it does seem like he will simplify things.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know that I could say with any level of certainty what the Sixers' complicated offensive foundation was last season.
Well, last season for sure, yeah.
It seemed to be like just really clunky. Like if there's like if you're playing a video game and you're like, okay, should we space the floor? Should we play fast? Should we play like post up? And there's like, or should we just be clunky? Like there's like a drop down menu for just like clunky. And I'm like, I'll pick that, and everyone's kind of standing in the same place and like not really sure who's doing what. I don't know. I mean, I guess to me, it's just it's such a personnel thing. Like, I don't think the coach was the problem last year.
Yep.
And I don't think it'll be the problem this year. It will depend on them getting any level of cohesion from a personnel standpoint, which they seem to, cohesion. I didn't know was like a partisan issue, but the Sixers thought they were going to zag when everybody else was zigging and thought like cohesion bad. We don't know, no cohesion. No, thank you.
It's funny though. I've sort of, we've said over and over and over again, unless you have one of the great coaches or one of the terrible coaches, most of it is determined by personnel. But I was reading a thing from on NBC Sports, Haberstroh, that like wanted to push back on people criticizing him, Doc Rivers, for blowing 3-1 leads. I'm like, well, you're going to give him credit for winning a championship. Right? So we're going to give him credit for all the good things that happened. So we have to talk about the bad things that happened too. It's all part of it. And most of it has to do with the players on the court.
To be clear, I'm not saying coaching like doesn't matter at all.
No, yeah.
I'm just saying it's such a secondary concern for me at this point. And all three coaching candidates were all like good to very good. But also wouldn't have really made that much of a difference of how I feel about the team. I think anyone with like really strong coaching takes about Ty Lue or Mike D'Antoni or Doc Rivers, it's like, you don't know. Like they're all they're all pros. Like they've all been doing this for a while. Ty Lue obviously for less time. Two of them have won championships. The other one has been like consistently good most places he's been and revolutionized the sport. Like there's certainly pros for all of them. But also, if they were the best coach of all time, they wouldn't be available.
Right. I would say of the three coaches, the only thing that I was specifically interested in, the only thing that I found interesting was the idea of D'Antoni in the offense. It was the only thing, and that doesn't mean it was better or
only because it seemed to be the exact opposite of what they had personnel wise.
Right. As I mentioned, Doc Rivers has seemed to get a lot out of big men, whether it is DeAndre Jordan or Blake Griffin or Kevin Garnett, or even Montrezl Harrell. He has done a good job with big guys. That is not something that D'Antoni has done. So that would seem to be a positive. Yeah,
the league has changed, even in just a few years since like Blake and DeAndre were the guys there. But that's certainly the closest comparison to Simmons and Embiid. Obviously, they're different skills, but as far as like size and body goes, and Embiid takes more threes than DeAndre Jordan, obviously, but he doesn't love doing it. Doc unlocked Blake as more of a ball handler, which Simmons is obviously good at now, but has a little struggles to find more purpose in the half-court ball handling than he does in transition. It's interesting. I mean, honestly, just get JJ back. Make it a little more drama for you personally. And,
I don't care anymore.
And then just, fluidity for everybody else.
He would have to come on the pod if he came back, even though he's banned.
We would have to.
Yeah, but how are we going to coexist, right?
We'd run up the flagpole of the Sixers front office and be like, all right, in the terms of the trade, can you just please, we promise to, speak positively about him, not mention the person in the trunk.
Or the Chinese New Year thing, or everything's in the past.
That's you. I thought that's a straight up misspeak.
It's wow.
Sometimes
I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into it.
Ridiculous.
Calling that a misspeak is like calling certain things autocorrect on
sometimes things autocorrect.
Man,
come on.
Nuggets never autocorrects. I don't know. I guess is what I'm saying. For a lot of the positives, there are also like weird, like bizarro negatives, like the other side of Doc or whatever. On one hand, he definitely has cachet. People respect him. You would think that the players would immediately respect him because of who he is. That said, there has been like locker room stuff, I don't know, all the time. I mean, not all the time.
For sure.
So Blake Griffin broke his hand beating up a trainer, and everybody hated Chris Paul. This year, I mean, the only way they fire Doc Rivers is if the players don't want to keep him, specifically Kawhi and Paul George. And by the way, you likened them to Ben and Embiid in their great players, but not particularly leaders thing. And even in Boston, there was like a Rondo, Ray Allen thing. Not that they're his fault, but for a guy who's like one of his calling cards at this point should be that he is respected. It's like when it comes down to it, it's on the players, I think, to buy in. I don't know. It's a weird thing, right?
He has the interesting, he's both a player's coach, which I think might just be a little bit like he's a black head coach, and I think people are like, well, the players love him because he's black, and I think there's a little bit of that in there.
Yeah.
And which sort of discounts the him as a tactician and running an offense and stuff, and as if only the white coaches can be creative play callers and schemers and stuff, and the black coaches are just there to have a good time, which is tough. But he's also a disciplinarian, he's not a go with the flow guy. So to be labeled as a player's coach and also a guy who's a bit of a hard ass is interesting. But he's had success a bunch of places. He's been in the league a long time. He's 11th winning 11th winningest coach in NBA history. So there is definitely that there. I don't know what to expect on that level. I think every good team has some drama and
Friction,
like and like little skirmishes within them. And like no one's talking about like, I don't know, the Charlotte Hornets' drama this season because they didn't fucking matter. But like if you get into the playoffs, I think you could look at every single playoff team, and especially every team that like moved forward at all, and be like, well, that was an issue. That would seem like a chemistry thing or whatever. Because, you know, on a basketball team, especially the longer you play with them, especially when you're in a hermetically sealed bubble and unable to leave or see your family, there's going to be people that don't like each other, you know? And so I think you look at every team and say that. So I don't really hold that against him because that's everywhere. But I also don't think he's going to be like, kumbaya, we're going to get the pictures of Ben and Joel kissing that I want. But I think that's not like a real concern.
You two, fucking kiss.
Kiss.
Kiss already.
Kiss.